Good evening, dear traveller. The day has carried enough voices already. There is nothing more you need to hurry toward. Allow your shoulders to soften, let your breathing find its own quiet rhythm, and settle into a place where the world can become wonderfully distant. Tonight we will not chase great battles or famous names. Instead, we will follow something slower, a journey shaped by wood, water, wind, and patient hands. If you find comfort in these peaceful walks through history, you may wish to quietly leave a small sign of your presence by liking this gathering, and perhaps return again by subscribing. Like old trails through a forest, these journeys become easier to find when kind travelers leave gentle footprints behind. Now as the evening grows still, let us leave our own century without haste. The first thing to disappear is not the land beneath your feet, but the sound of the modern world. Its sharp edges soften, fading behind a veil as gentle as morning mist. In their place comes another rhythm, one so old that it seems to have been waiting for centuries, hidden somewhere beyond memory. It is the slow breathing of a northern forest, where the air carries the cool fragrance of damp earth, pine resin, and quiet rain. Before there is a ship, there is only a tree. Not just any tree, but an ancient oak standing upon the rocky soils of Scandinavia. For generations beyond counting, it has welcomed pale northern sunlight that never climbs high above the horizon. Even in summer, the light arrives gently, filtered through a long passage of atmosphere, touching the bark with a softness unlike the fierce sun of distant southern lands. Each year the oak grows another narrow ring beneath its weathered skin, listening without complaint to snow, wind, silence, and returning spring. The forest itself never seems entirely still. Scots pines rise among the oaks, their dark trunks stretching toward a quiet sky. Norway spruce gathers shadows beneath its branches, while silver birch leaves shimmer whenever a cool breeze wanders between them. Below, soft carpets of moss cling to stone and fallen wood, storing moisture through long seasons of rain. Heather and crowberry spread patiently across rocky clearings, asking for little more than time. Nothing here appears hurried. The forest understands something that people often forget. Strength is rarely built in moments. It grows quietly, ring by ring, morning after morning, winter after winter. Even the air seems to move more slowly here. The scent of wet bark mingles with rich moss and distant seawater drifting inland from the fjords. Somewhere above the trees, the cry of a white-tailed eagle circles through the pale sky before disappearing into silence once again. For many years, perhaps centuries, the oak simply remains. Its roots hold tightly to the earth while storms pass overhead. Snow gathers along its branches each winter before melting into tiny streams that disappear among stones. Birds rest upon its limbs. Rain darkens its bark. The seasons continue their endless conversation, leaving almost invisible marks that only time can truly read. Eventually, people arrive. They do not come searching for merely the tallest tree. They search for the right one, a tree whose grain has grown straight through decades of northern wind, a trunk whose fibers have endured countless winters without surrendering their quiet strength. They walk around it with patient eyes, seeing not only what stands before them, but what sleeps inside the wood. To them, the oak is already becoming something else, not through imagination alone, through understanding. They know that hidden beneath the bark are long, unbroken fibers running from root to crown, carrying the memory of every season the tree has survived. Those fibers are precious. If broken carelessly, the wood weakens. If preserved, it gains remarkable resilience. When the day finally comes, the oak does not meet sharp saws. Instead, wedges are placed carefully into the grain. One measured strike follows another. The sound echoes softly through the forest, not violent but deliberate. The trunk opens along its own natural lines, guided rather than forced. The wood separates exactly as it has wished to separate all along. This patient method preserves every continuous fiber inside each plank. The people shaping the timber understand that nature has already completed the hardest work. Their task is simply to follow what the tree has spent centuries creating. Freshly opened oak releases a fragrance unlike any finished board. Moist, slightly sweet, carrying traces of earth, rain and living sap, it fills the cool northern air. Smooth inner surfaces catch the pale sunlight, while rough bark still clings to the outer edges. Tiny beads of moisture shimmer before slowly disappearing into the breeze. Hands move gently across the grain. They are not only measuring thickness, they are listening. Wood speaks differently beneath experienced fingers. Some sections feel firm, others slightly elastic, each revealing how they will someday bend beneath waves without breaking. No one rushes. The ship already exists. It is simply waiting to be uncovered. Far beyond the forest, where rivers descend toward the sea, the fjords wait in silence. Long before any vessel reaches their waters, they have already shaped the world into which it will be born. These enormous valleys were carved not by rivers, but by glaciers that moved with unimaginable patience across the land during ages when ice ruled the north. Slowly, over thousands of years, they pressed deeper into the mountains until the sea eventually entered the empty valleys left behind. Now those waters lie astonishingly deep beneath calm surfaces. In some places, the depths descend for more than 1,000 meters, while hidden thresholds of stone near each fjord's mouth quietly separate the deep ocean from the sheltered interior. Fresh water flowing down from rivers rests lightly above denser salt water below, forming invisible layers that rarely disturb one another. From above, nothing reveals these hidden worlds. The surface simply reflects the sky. It seems almost impossible that beneath such quiet water exist entirely different temperatures, different currents, different realms suspended one above another in perfect stillness. Perhaps people are not so different. What we show the world is often only the uppermost layer. Below remain older currents, colder memories, quieter depths. The forests know this. The mountains know this. The sea has always known. Morning mist begins to gather where cool water meets slightly warmer air. It forms gently across the fjord until the shoreline softens and distant cliffs fade into pale, grey shapes. Sounds begin behaving strangely within the fog. The scrape of wood against wood carries far beyond what the eye can see. A single splash may travel across kilometers of calm water before dissolving into silence. Even before a ship exists, the fjord is already preparing a place where every sound will matter. Soon the oak will leave the forest. Soon, thousands of carefully shaped planks will begin finding one another. Soon, iron will meet wood, tar will meet moss, wool will meet wind, and little by little something remarkable will awaken, not simply a vessel, but a companion patient enough to carry generations across rivers, seas, storms, and quiet mornings beneath pale northern skies. For now, however, the timber rests. The scent of fresh oak still lingers in the cool evening air. The forest breathes slowly around it, as though offering one final blessing before the long journey begins. The silence does not remain empty for long. It gathers around the waiting timber with the same patience that once gathered around the living tree. Dew settles across the fresh grain before the first hands arrive again, leaving tiny beads that catch the pale northern light for only a few quiet moments. One by one, they disappear into the thirsty oak, as though the wood accepts one final drink from the land before beginning its life upon the sea. Nearby, someone warms a dark kettle filled with pine resin. The fragrance rises slowly into the cool morning air, rich and unmistakable. It carries the sharp sweetness of evergreen forests and the deeper scent of smoke lingering from fires long extinguished. There is comfort in that aroma, not because it is pleasant alone, but because it promises protection against water that has not yet touched the ship. The forest offers the tree. Now the forest offers its own memory as well. Nothing is wasted. Not the oak, not the resin, not even the moss growing quietly beneath stones. The same soft moss that cushions every careful footstep through the woods will one day disappear into narrow seams between planks, hidden forever beneath layers of boiled pine tar. Animal hair, gathered from cattle, sheep, and horses, will mingle with it, creating a barrier that no eye will notice once the work is complete. Invisible things often carry the greatest responsibilities, as in life itself. The strongest bonds are rarely the ones that seek attention. A long row of planks begins resting side by side, each one slightly curved by the shape the tree carried within itself. Their edges are not intended to meet like perfectly flat stones. Instead, each board reaches gently over the one beneath it, overlapping with quiet confidence. There is something strangely familiar in that gesture. Each plank protects another. Each depends upon another. Alone, a single board is simply wood. Together, they become something capable of crossing oceans. The builders begin not with the skeleton of the vessel, but with its skin. Piece by piece, the shell appears before the ribs hidden inside it ever exist. It feels almost backwards to unfamiliar eyes, yet entirely natural to those who have learned from generations before them. The outer form arrives first, like the bark of a growing tree, while the inner strength follows later, fitting itself patiently into what already lives. Iron soon enters the conversation, not loudly, not triumphantly. Each rivet arrives with the measured rhythm of practiced hands. A narrow hole is prepared through overlapping oak. The iron passes carefully from one side to the other before meeting a small washer waiting inside the growing hole. Then comes the gentle music of hammer against metal. Again and again, thousands of times. Each strikes slightly different from the last. No orchestra has been assembled here. Yet the valley listens to a quiet composition written in oak and iron. Before many seasons have passed, more than 4,000 rivets may hold a great skate together, though no traveller standing upon the completed deck will ever count them. They will simply trust what they cannot see. Trust often rests upon hidden craftsmanship. Perhaps civilizations do as well. The finished surface appears graceful, almost impossibly light against the shoreline, but beneath every graceful curve lies a patient accumulation of countless unnoticed acts. Outside the unfinished whole, the fjord watches without judgment. Its surface remains calm enough to reflect entire mountains, as though stone itself had learned to float. Yet below that stillness, different worlds remain suspended above one another. Near the surface, clear streams descending from distant valleys spread fresh water across the sea. Beneath them waits older salt water, heavier and denser, resting quietly behind the unseen threshold of the fjord's rocky sill. Neither layer rushes to become the other, they simply exist together. Some boundaries need no walls. Nature often chooses balance instead. Far below, where sunlight rarely reaches, the water changes very little from one season to the next. Above, winter freezes sheltered inlets, while summer softens them until they mirror endless evenings. Yet deep beneath, the cold remains remarkably constant. The sea remembers differently than the land. The forest measures time in rings. Water measures it in stillness. As the hull slowly lengthens, another remarkable shape begins revealing itself. Long, narrow, balanced. The distance from bow to beam stretches nearly 7 times across its width, creating a form that seems almost too slender to trust. Yet that elegant proportion asks remarkably little from the water beneath it. Instead of forcing the sea aside, it slips quietly through it, borrowing speed from simplicity. There is wisdom hidden in restraint. The broadest path is not always the easiest one. The ship carries no unnecessary weight in its form. Even its ends refuse to choose a permanent direction. Bow and stern mirror one another so closely that the vessel appears uncertain which way it intends to travel. But this uncertainty is, in truth, another kind of certainty. In narrow rivers where turning becomes impossible, the crew will simply exchange their movements. Oars reverse their rhythm, the steerboard changes its purpose, and the journey continues without the vessel ever needing to spin upon the water. Sometimes progress asks us not to turn around, only to see the same path from another direction. The keel beneath everything remains surprisingly modest. It does not plunge deeply into the sea like the heavy ships that distant generations will someday build. Instead, it barely reaches beneath the surface, allowing the vessel to wander where larger craft would hesitate even to imagine: shallow rivers, hidden estuaries, rock-lined fjords, quiet beaches where waves arrive without violence. The ship belongs equally to sea and shore. Perhaps that is why it never seems entirely separated from the land that created it. Even after launching, the scent of oak refuses to disappear. Tar warms beneath pale sunlight until its sticky surface catches tiny grains of wind-blown sand. Anyone resting a hand against the hull would feel its gentle tackiness softened by the warmth of the day. Their fingertips would carry that fragrance for hours afterward, a mixture of resin, damp timber, faint salt, and distant smoke. The builders scarcely notice it anymore. It has become the smell of ordinary life. Extraordinary things often become invisible to those who create them every day. Nearby, long poles of straight pine and resilient ash wait quietly upon wooden supports. They have traveled their own patient lives through northern forests before arriving here. Their future is different from the oak. They will not become the body of the vessel. Instead, one will rise toward the sky. Others will become oars reaching into water. Each tree continues serving the world according to the nature it quietly carried all along. At the center of the growing hull, an immense block of oak is carefully fitted above the keel. Its purpose is never announced. It simply accepts weight. Someday an enormous mast will press downward through it with tremendous force whenever the great wool sail fills with wind. Yet this silent block, known among the builders as the Old Woman, will spread that burden gently across the keel, protecting the ship from the very strength that drives it forward. There is kindness in carrying another's weight. The strongest support is often the least visible. Above it, another carefully shaped timber waits to embrace the mast from the deck itself, allowing it to rise and fall whenever changing conditions demand humility instead of stubbornness. Even strength benefits from flexibility. The builders have learned this not from philosophy, but from storms. Every lesson rests somewhere inside the landscape. Every answer has first belonged to nature, and beyond the shoreline, where the fjord opens toward the restless sea, a faint breath of colder air begins slipping quietly down the towering valley walls. The mountains have started to exhale. The first touch is almost too gentle to notice. A faint current glides over the quiet water, disturbing only the smallest reflections. The mirrored mountains soften for a heartbeat before becoming still once again. Far above the fjord, cold air has begun its slow descent from the glacial plateaus, gathering strength as gravity quietly guides it between walls of ancient stone. No one argues with this wind. Those who have lived beside these waters understand that it belongs to the mountains long before it belongs to the sea. It does not announce itself with thunder. It simply arrives. The waiting mast is lifted before sunrise, while the world still carries the cool blue colors that exist only between night and morning. Dozens of hands move together without raised voices. Thick ropes woven from bast fibers tighten with a dry whisper, while stronger stays of braided walrus hide stretch beneath growing tension. Their fibers answer with a deep, restrained groan, as though remembering the great animal that once crossed cold northern waters beneath drifting ice. The mast rises slowly, not as a monument, as a tree returning to the sky. For a brief moment it seems uncertain, suspended between earth and heaven, before settling securely into the great oak cradle hidden deep within the vessel. The immense block beneath accepts the weight without protest, spreading every downward force gently through the length of the keel. Nothing cracks, nothing resists. Everything simply shares the burden. There is a quiet kind of wisdom in that. Strength that insists upon carrying everything alone eventually grows tired. Strength that distributes its weight may endure for generations. Above, another great timber embraces the mast, holding it upright while still allowing it to be lowered whenever changing seas ask for humility instead of pride. The builders have learned not to fight nature. They have learned to cooperate with it. Perhaps that is why the ship already feels less like an object than a living companion. Nearby, the great wool sail waits folded upon itself. Its rough surface still carries the scent of sheep and lanolin beneath heavier layers of animal fat, fish oil, pine tar, and finely ground red ochre. It is coarse beneath the fingertips, slightly greasy even in the cool air, and astonishingly heavy while resting quietly upon the deck. When dry, it already demands respect. When rain soaks every woven thread, it will ask for even more. Yet no one complains. The sea has never promised lightness. The first lines are fastened carefully. Each knot receives patient attention, not because anyone fears failure today, but because every unnoticed detail may someday stand between safe passage and a gathering storm. Above the fjord, clouds drift almost lazily across the pale northern sky. The sun never climbs high enough to burn away every shadow. Even at the height of summer, its light arrives from an angle, crossing a greater thickness of atmosphere before touching the world below. Somewhere along that long journey, the brighter colors surrender themselves to the sky. What finally reaches the water is softer, gentler, as though daylight itself has learned to speak in whispers. The oak receives this quiet light differently than polished stone ever could. Its surface glows instead of shining. Every curve along the overlapping planks reveals itself not through brilliance, but through subtle differences between warmth and shade. The vessel seems almost to breathe as changing clouds move overhead. No painter could fully capture such colors. They belong only to places where the sun remains forever humble. A distant splash echoes unexpectedly through the fjord. No one nearby has entered the water. The sound has traveled. Cool air still rests close to the surface, while warmer air floats above it, gently bending every low voice back toward the sea. Calm water returns those sounds once again, carrying them onward until distance itself seems briefly forgotten. An oar shifting against wood, a gull calling somewhere beyond the mist, the quiet tap of iron touching oak. Each reaches ears far beyond its birthplace. The Fjord keeps very few secrets. It simply chooses to whisper them over great distances. The growing vessel listens as well. Its open hull forms an enormous wooden chamber where every small sound deepens before fading away. A hand brushing against the outer planking produces a soft resonance beneath the ribs. Even the smallest wave touching the unfinished hull seems larger from within, transformed into a slow heartbeat echoing through oak that once belonged to the forest. Perhaps every home teaches us its own rhythm before we realize we are listening. The builders continue without haste. One of them runs weathered fingers across a newly fastened seam. Between overlapping planks rests a narrow line of carefully packed fibers, animal hair intertwined with moss gathered from damp woodland stones. Warm pine tar seals everything beneath its dark surface until the boundary between wood and woodland quietly disappears. The forest has entered the ship more completely than anyone notices, not only through timber, through moss, through resin, through every hidden space where life continues unseen. Even the smell changes as the day grows warmer. The sharp scent of fresh oak slowly gives way to heated tar. Salt carried inland by the tide mingles with resin until sea and forest become impossible to separate by scent alone. Some places refuse simple definitions. Is this the fragrance of land or of water? Perhaps neither. Perhaps both have forgotten where one ends. Toward afternoon, the vessel finally rests upon prepared rollers. Smooth logs lie beneath the keel, their surfaces coated with rendered animal fat and crushed seaweed until they glisten softly beneath the muted light. Long ropes of braided walrus hide stretch inland, disappearing into waiting hands beyond the frame of the shoreline. No command breaks the silence. Movement begins almost invisibly. The ship advances no farther than a few finger widths before pausing, then again and again. Each effort joins the next until weight slowly surrenders to patience. The earth itself seems reluctant to let go. For many years this oak drank rain, where its roots held firmly beneath the forest floor. Now it begins learning another way of belonging. The rollers murmur beneath the keel with a deep wooden rumble. Greased timber slides over timber. Leather ropes tighten. Footsteps press into damp ground. Breathing settles into shared rhythm. No single person moves the vessel. Many small strengths become one quiet strength. Perhaps every meaningful journey begins this way. Not through one extraordinary effort, but through ordinary efforts offered together. As the bow nears the water, a harbour seal briefly lifts its head above the calm surface. Dark eyes observe without fear, only curiosity. It remains perfectly still before disappearing beneath the brackish upper layer, vanishing into deeper salt water hidden below. The circles left behind widen gently across the fjord until they dissolve into reflections of cloud and cliff. Life has already accepted the newcomer. Somewhere higher among the rocky slopes, a white-tailed eagle circles upon invisible currents, seeing far beyond what any human eye can follow. Beneath its wide wings the forests, the mountains, the water, and the unfinished vessel appear not as separate things, but as one landscape breathing together beneath the pale northern sky. Perhaps that has always been the eagle's gift, not sharper sight alone, but fewer divisions. The last distance between oak and sea grows smaller with every careful pull. Soon the keel will discover a different kind of silence, one that belongs neither to forests nor to workshops, only to water patient enough to carry memory without ever asking where it came from. There comes a point when wood no longer belongs entirely to the shore. It is not marked by a ceremony. No horn sounds across the valley. No voice declares that a beginning has arrived. The change is quieter than that. It happens within the length of a single breath, when the weight resting upon the rollers slowly becomes lighter than the gentle upward welcome offered by the fjord itself. The first embrace is almost soundless. Only a deep, muffled whisper rises beneath the keel as cold water finds the oak for the very first time, not as an enemy, as an old companion meeting another after a very long separation. Tiny streams slip along the overlapping planks, searching every seam where moss, animal hair, and dark resin have settled together. The water presses patiently against them, discovering no haste and no weakness. It simply continues its endless conversation with the hull, asking the same quiet question it has asked every vessel that has ever entered the sea. Can you move with me, without trying to defeat me? The answer does not arrive in words. It arrives in movement. The long, narrow body yields ever so slightly beneath the gentle swell. So subtle is the motion that anyone standing nearby might mistake it for imagination. Yet throughout the length of the vessel, countless oak fibers awaken together. The tree has not forgotten how to bend, only now it bends for waves instead of wind. That quiet gift was hidden inside the grain from the very beginning. The patient splitting of the trunk, following the living direction of its fibers instead of cutting across them, has preserved something far greater than strength. It has preserved memory. Every plank carries within itself long uninterrupted pathways that allow the entire whole to breathe with the sea. Rigid things often fear change. Living things survive because they welcome it. Another gentle swell arrives. The planks shift almost invisibly against one another. Iron rivets answer with tiny creaks no louder than the turning of an old page. Thousands of them share the burden together. No single rivet must resist the sea alone. Within the hole, the sound gathers softly beneath the open ribs until it resembles the slow breathing of some great sleeping animal. Perhaps every well-built home develops its own heartbeat. The fjord seems pleased with this newcomer. Its surface remains almost perfectly smooth, disturbed only by widening circles drifting away from the hull. High above, narrow ribbons of mist continue to wander along the dark cliffs, sometimes revealing ancient stone before hiding it once again. The mountains rarely reveal everything at once. Wisdom often behaves the same way. A pair of gulls circles briefly overhead. Their cries travel much farther than their small bodies would suggest. Cool air resting close to the water bends the sound gently downward, while the still surface reflects it onward like polished glass. Before long, the distant calls seem to belong not to birds at all, but to the fjord itself. Sound here does not simply travel, it lingers. Every splash remains present just a little longer than expected. Every knock upon oak seems unwilling to disappear. Farther out, where the sheltered water slowly approaches the rocky threshold guarding the mouth of the fjord, invisible forces continue their patient work beneath the surface. Fresh river water glides quietly toward the sea, while older, denser salt water waits below, separated by a boundary no eye can witness. The two worlds touch without mixing completely. One drifting, one enduring. Perhaps time itself moves in similar layers. The passing days belong near the surface. The deepest memories settle somewhere beneath them, changing so slowly that they almost seem beyond change altogether. Hands reach once more across the hull, not to admire it, to listen. A weathered palm presses gently against warm tar where sunlight has softened its surface. Sticky resin clings faintly to the skin before slowly releasing it again. The familiar scent rises with the afternoon warmth. Pine forests transformed by fire and careful hands into protection against water. Resin, smoke, oak, salt. Each fragrance carries a different landscape. Together they become the scent of departure. Nearby, the great steerboard rests against the starboard side, awaiting its proper place. It resembles an oversized oar more than what later centuries might imagine as a rudder. Thick walrus hide waits beside it, still supple despite its remarkable strength. A reinforced wooden block projects from the hull, ready to cradle the great blade with quiet confidence. Nothing about the arrangement appears rigid. The hide allows movement. The timber provides support. Together they create something that can yield without surrendering. The sea rarely rewards stiffness. The helmsman fits the great blade into its place with movements so practiced they scarcely invite notice. A sturdy tiller settles across the upper end at a right angle, extending comfortably into waiting hands. There is very little force required. A gentle push, a patient pull. Far below the surface, the blade turns through dark water with surprising grace. Leverage quietly accomplishes what strength alone never could. Many truths seem determined to hide inside ordinary tools. The vessel drifts a little farther from the shore. No oars disturb the water yet. There is no urgency. The builders watch with calm satisfaction rather than celebration. They know that today proves only one thing. The ship has accepted the sea. The sea has accepted the ship. Everything else belongs to seasons still waiting beyond the horizon. Cloud shadows wander across the steep mountainsides, revealing scattered birch among darker pine and spruce. Moss drinks quietly from hidden springs flowing through cracks in the stone. Heather bends gently beneath passing currents of cool air. Somewhere beyond sight, cod move through deeper salt water, while schools of herring shimmer nearer the brighter surface. Above them all, the fjord keeps breathing with extraordinary patience. It has watched glaciers carve these valleys. It has watched forests return after the ice. It has reflected generations of ships without ever asking where they were bound. Perhaps that is the quiet generosity of water. It carries every traveler. It judges none. Toward evening, the light grows even softer. The already pale northern sun lowers until its rays skim almost horizontally across the calm water. Every tiny ripple catches silver along one edge, while the opposite side slips gently into blue shadow. The hull appears to float between two worlds, one made of reflected sky, the other of immeasurable depth. For a moment it becomes difficult to tell where the ship truly belongs. Perhaps nowhere, perhaps everywhere water chooses to welcome it. A child standing upon the shoreline watches until the vessel has drifted beyond easy conversation. No farewell is spoken. Some departures become too meaningful for words. The child simply remembers the smell of warm tar, the creaking oak, the pale light resting upon quiet water. Many years later, those small memories may remain clearer than any date or name. The heart has always measured history differently than the mind. A faint current passes beneath the hull once more. This time the ship answers with greater confidence, not resisting, not surrendering, simply learning the language that only moving water can teach. The water offers no instructions. It never tells a vessel where to go, nor does it promise that every current will remain kind. It simply continues its ancient motion, inviting each traveler to discover whether patience has been learned well enough to become direction. The longship rests for a while, rising and settling with movements so gentle they almost disappear into breathing itself. Every quiet lift is followed by an equally quiet descent. The oak does not struggle against these motions. It accepts them, allowing every overlapping plank to shift by the smallest imaginable measure. Deep within the hull, the iron answers, not with sharp metallic sounds, only with soft murmurs, tiny voices hidden inside thousands of carefully shaped rivets. If someone were to close their eyes inside the vessel, the ship would seem less like something built and more like something sleeping. The forest has learned to dream upon water. A hand reaches for the first oar. Ash wood feels different from oak. Its surface is smoother beneath the palm, lighter without seeming fragile, carrying the quiet resilience of a tree that has spent its own lifetime bending before northern winds. Long fingers wrap naturally around the worn loom, polished by careful shaping. The blade rests above the still surface for another patient moment, waiting not for command but for agreement. Around the ship, others do the same. No hurried gestures, no restless anticipation, only a gathering rhythm that has not yet become sound. Each oar finds the rounded opening prepared for it along the gunwale. The wood settles against its support with a low, familiar tone, as though returning to a place it somehow recognizes despite arriving there for the first time. Perhaps careful craftsmanship creates its own sense of belonging. The first stroke enters the fjord almost without a splash. The blade slips beneath the surface instead of striking it, disturbing only a ribbon of silver that widens slowly behind the vessel. Another follows. then another. Soon the water begins receiving a quiet sequence of movements so regular that they resemble the slow beating of a peaceful heart. No one rows against the sea. They row with it. The whole answers immediately. Its long proportions ask very little from the water, and the fjord responds with quiet generosity. Instead of pushing a heavy wall before itself, the vessel seems to lengthen into its own reflection, gliding forward with surprising ease. Distance begins to disappear almost unnoticed. The shoreline withdraws one gentle stroke at a time. The child standing among the stones grows smaller. The scent of warm earth slowly yields to colder salt carried from deeper water. Even the voices from shore dissolve until only wind and wood remain. Above, the sky continues changing without urgency. Thin clouds wander across the pale sun, softening light that was already gentle to begin with. The mountains receive each passing shadow with complete indifference, their ancient faces remaining patient beneath every changing season. Stone has little reason to hurry. Time visits it differently. The rhythm of rowing settles naturally into rotating watches. No single pair of arms is expected to carry the journey alone. After a while, another takes the oar, then another. The bench beneath each rower is more than a place to sit. Beneath weathered hands rests a simple wooden chest, worn smooth by years of use. Inside lies nearly everything its owner possesses while at sea: carefully wrapped clothing, simple tools, treasured keepsakes, and provisions measured not by abundance but by necessity. The seat carries the traveler. The chest carries the life. Perhaps home is sometimes no larger than the things one can lift with both hands. Between watches, another man quietly stretches, inside a folded hide resting along the open deck. The leather is thick, softened by years of careful use, and heavily dressed with animal fat until rain struggles to enter it. Two companions settle beneath the same covering, sharing warmth without speaking. There is little need for conversation. The sea has always understood silence. Above them, the mast rises through the center of the vessel like the final memory of the forest from which it came. The great square sail remains furled for now, waiting with extraordinary patience. It knows that not every breeze deserves to be captured. Even wind must be listened to before it is trusted. Far ahead, the fjord narrows between walls of dark stone. Pine forests descend almost to the water's edge, interrupted only by pale trunks of birch catching the fading light. Moss spreads over boulders, polished by centuries of rain, until the ground itself seems covered in quiet green velvet. Somewhere unseen among those forests, fresh springs begin journeys that will eventually become rivers. Those rivers will meet the fjord. The fjord will meet the sea. The sea will return as rain. Nothing here travels alone. A sudden breath of colder air brushes across waiting faces. Not harsh, simply unexpected. High above, dense evening air has begun descending from the glacial plateaus, gathering speed as it slips between steep mountain walls. The first touch arrives gently enough to seem harmless, yet every experienced eye immediately lifts toward the mast. Without haste, hands loosen prepared lines. Others stand ready beside the great sail. No alarm passes among them, only attention. Nature rarely announces its lessons twice. The breeze strengthens another little measure. The folded wool is released. Its great weight falls outward before catching the moving air with a powerful, unmistakable report. The sound echoes through the valley like a single enormous breath filling ancient lungs. For one suspended moment, the sail seems alive. Heavy treated wool stretches against the gathering wind, every coarse fibre accepting tremendous strain. Braided stays tighten until they hum softly beneath their invisible burden. Below, the mast presses downward with astonishing force. Yet the old oak hidden within the ship quietly receives every pound of that weight, spreading it patiently through the keel exactly as generations of builders intended. Nothing dramatic occurs, and precisely because nothing dramatic occurs, everything has succeeded. The vessel leans only slightly before finding its balance once again. The water slips faster along the hull. The hiss against overlapping planks grows steadier. Tiny droplets rise from the bow and disappear into the cool air almost before they can fall back. The ship is no longer merely floating. It has begun conversing with the wind. Far out across the fjord, a dark shape surfaces briefly before disappearing beneath the calm water. Perhaps a harbour seal, perhaps something else entirely. Only widening circles remain, expanding until they blend with the countless ripples already surrounding the longship. Some mysteries ask only to be witnessed, not solved. Evening slowly gathers. Because the northern sun refuses to sink quickly, daylight stretches itself across the horizon in long bands of silver, pale gold, and cool blue. Reflections linger upon the water long after they might have vanished elsewhere in the world. The mountains seem almost unwilling to let go of the light. Perhaps they understand that darkness is never truly the opposite of day. Only another way for the landscape to breathe. The longship continues forward without urgency. Every creak of oak, every whisper of rope, every gentle splash beneath the oars now resting quietly beside the hull. Each sound has found its place within a rhythm older than memory itself. And somewhere beyond the next bend of the fjord, where the cliffs begin to loosen their embrace and wider waters quietly wait beyond unseen stone, another lesson is already approaching on the evening tide. The mountains slowly begin to loosen their hold, not all at once. Their dark walls simply stand a little farther apart with each passing moment, allowing broader pieces of sky to settle upon the water. The narrow echoes that had lingered faithfully between the cliffs begin to soften, carried away into wider spaces where sound no longer returns so quickly to its birthplace. Behind the vessel, the familiar shelter of the fjord grows quieter with distance. Ahead, the sea is still unseen, yet its presence is already beginning to reveal itself in smaller, quieter ways. The breathing of the water changes first. Until now, every gentle rise beneath the hull had arrived from the enclosing landscape itself, reflected from stone, redirected by hidden coves, softened by patient cliffs. But another rhythm now begins slipping beneath those familiar motions, longer, slower, as though somewhere beyond the horizon another hand has begun rocking the world. No eye can yet discover the distant coast that shapes these invisible movements. Only the hull knows. Deep beneath the surface, broad ocean swells continue journeys that may have begun hundreds of miles away. They travel with remarkable faithfulness, preserving directions that neither wind nor darkness entirely erase. When those swells encounter unseen islands, hidden headlands, or distant shores beyond the curve of the earth, they bend quietly around them before continuing onward. By the time they arrive beneath the longship, they carry whispers of places still invisible. The vessel listens, not with ears, with oak. Each passing swell presses gently against the broad underside before slipping away beneath the stern. Another arrives moments later from a subtly different angle, where the two meet. An almost imperceptible crossing pattern forms beneath the keel. Most travelers would never notice, but those who have spent years upon these waters recognize such quiet conversations immediately. Land does not always need to be seen before it is known. Perhaps people are much the same. Sometimes we understand one another long before words arrive. An older navigator closes his eyes for a brief moment. His weathered hand rests lightly against the gunwale, fingertips barely touching the polished oak. Every small vibration travels through the timber before entering his bones. He is not searching, he is remembering. The sea has taught him that certainty often enters through patience rather than sight. Above, a thin veil of cloud slowly drifts across the evening sky. The pale northern light becomes softer still, dissolving sharp edges until mountains, forest, and water appear stitched together by quiet shades of silver and blue. Even distance seems gentler here. Nothing ends abruptly. Everything simply fades into something else. Near the mast, another pair of hands carefully loosens a leather thong securing a small pouch. From within emerges a crystal unlike ordinary stone. Clear enough to welcome light, simple enough to pass unnoticed by anyone who does not understand what rests inside it. The navigator lifts it toward the quiet sky. Clouds have hidden the sun almost completely now, yet daylight remains. He slowly turns the crystal between patient fingers. Within its transparent depths, the light divides into two delicate images, shifting almost imperceptibly as the stone rotates. For a long moment nothing appears to happen. Then the two quiet glimmers become equal. Only then does the hand stop moving. The crystal lowers once more. No explanation follows. None is needed. The course continues with calm confidence. Sometimes the world offers guidance so quietly that only stillness is capable of hearing it. The breeze remains steady, not strong enough to demand fear, not weak enough to abandon the sail. The heavy wool continues, drawing invisible strength from moving air, its broad surface holding every current with quiet determination. The smell of treated fibers lingers beneath the cleaner scent of salt spray drifting across the deck. Every so often tiny droplets settle upon the woven cloth before disappearing into the grease that protects it. Water touches, water leaves. The sail continues breathing. Far overhead, a raven crosses the widening sky. Its black wings rise effortlessly upon invisible currents before carrying it toward distant forested slopes. The crew watches only briefly. Perhaps another raven waits somewhere within a simple wooden cage resting among the sea chests below. Not every companion aboard the ship walks upon two legs. Some carry different kinds of knowledge. There may come a morning, far from every recognizable shoreline, when the bird will be released into open sky. If it circles uncertainly before returning, the sea still stretches endlessly beyond its sight. But if it chooses one unwavering direction, without looking back, that quiet decision may become the direction of many human lives. It is remarkable how often hope first appears in the flight of something smaller than ourselves. The vessel glides onward. Its shallow body barely reaches beneath the surface, leaving most of the sea wonderfully undisturbed. Deeper ships would hesitate where this hull moves freely. The water seems grateful for such light footsteps. Even beneath the growing pull of the sail, The keel never demands more depth than necessary. The sea rewards humility more often than pride. Occasionally the great steerboard shifts with a low wooden sigh. A gentle movement of the tiller above becomes graceful balance below, where the broad blade slips through darker water, almost unnoticed. Thick walrus hide flexes slightly around its mounting, yielding just enough to soften every strain. Strength without brittleness. Flexibility without weakness. The landscape itself has taught this lesson again. A school of herring flashes beneath the surface like scattered pieces of the fading sky. For a heartbeat, the water seems filled with moving silver before every tiny body turns together and vanishes into deeper blue. Moments later, a darker shadow follows beneath them. Nothing dramatic unfolds, only the quiet continuation of hunger and movement that has existed for far longer than memory. The sea never wastes energy explaining itself. It simply continues. Night approaches slowly, so slowly that it becomes difficult to decide exactly when evening has ended. The northern horizon continues holding light long after another land might already have surrendered to darkness. Bands of pale amber dissolve into silver. Silver becomes blue. Blue quietly approaches violet. Above the highest ridges, the first stars hesitate. One appears, then another. The navigator raises his eyes only briefly. Among those quiet lights waits one that rarely wanders. Night after night, season after season, it keeps almost the same place while countless others slowly wheel around it. The ship does not greet it as something mysterious, only familiar. There is comfort in constancy. Even wandering souls occasionally need one unmoving point by which to understand their own journey. Behind them, the last outlines of the inner fjord have almost disappeared into soft twilight. Ahead, wider waters breathe beyond darkness, not with menace, but with immense patience. The Longship accepts this widening world without hesitation. Its builders have already placed forests inside its ribs, mountains inside its balance, water inside its memory, wind inside its voice. Now the horizon begins offering something else, not certainty, not destination, only distance waiting to become familiar. Distance has a curious way of changing the heart. At first it feels like separation, as familiar shores dissolve into gentle shades that slowly merge with the evening air. Yet after enough quiet miles have slipped beneath the keel, another feeling begins to emerge. The sea itself becomes familiar. The same patient swell returns beneath the hull. The same steady breathing of the sail rises and falls overhead. The same fragrance of tar, damp oak, salt, and wool settles into every fold of clothing until no one aboard notices it any more. It is no longer merely the scent of a vessel. It has become the scent of ordinary days. There is comfort hidden inside repetition when repetition is gentle. The Longship moves with such confidence now that the crew no longer watches every motion of the water. Their attention drifts naturally towards smaller things. A loose strand of rope quietly twisting in the breeze, tiny droplets gathering along the edge of an oar before falling back into the sea, the changing colors within the grain of the mast as the pale light slowly circles across it. Sometimes peace arrives not because the world grows silent, but because we finally begin listening to quieter sounds. Far behind, the fjords have disappeared beyond the curve of the earth. Yet they have not truly been left behind. The vessel still carries them. Every plank remembers the forest where it first stood. Every seam still holds moss gathered from cool northern stones. Every faint fragrance of pine resin recalls trees that continue growing beside hidden streams far from the open water. Perhaps we never travel as lightly as we imagine. We carry landscapes inside us, just as landscapes quietly carry us. The breeze freshens a little, nothing sudden, only enough to deepen the gentle curve of the square sail. The heavy wool accepts the additional wind without complaint. Its woven surface, strengthened by careful treatment with tallow, fish oil, pine tar, and red ochre, resists the moisture gathering from the cool night air. When the cloth shifts, it produces a deep, rounded sound unlike the snapping of lighter sails that later centuries will know. It resembles the slow unfolding of thick fabric around an old doorway, a sound that belongs more to homes than to storms. The rigging answers in its own quieter language. Braided walrus, hide stays tighten with low, almost musical notes, while ropes made from bast fibers whisper softly wherever they brush against polished wood. Every sound remains unhurried. The ship is never noisy, only alive. Clouds continue drifting above, becoming thinner until broad openings reveal an ever-growing field of stars. There are so many that the sky begins to resemble another sea, one lying upside down. The vessel seems suspended between two oceans, one flowing beneath oak, the other flowing above the mast. Perhaps this is why people have always searched the heavens for guidance. Not because the stars command us, because they remind us that direction can exist even within immeasurable space. Near the stern, the helmsman rests one weathered hand lightly upon the tiller. He scarcely appears to steer at all. Tiny movements become graceful corrections beneath the surface where the great steerboard continues its quiet conversation with the water. A stronger grip would achieve less. Gentleness often possesses surprising precision. Nearby, one of the younger crew members kneels beside a wooden cask. Fresh water rests within it, but only reluctantly. Already the faint signs of change have begun. Stillness encourages tiny unseen lives to awaken inside stored water, slowly altering its taste. No anger accompanies this quiet transformation. It is simply the nature of enclosed things. Instead, another vessel is opened. The scent rising from it is pleasantly sharp, sawway mixed carefully with water. Simple, refreshing. Its gentle acidity preserves what ordinary water cannot preserve for long. Others drink weak ale prepared long before departure, its careful brewing quietly protecting it from the invisible decay that pure water often invites during long journeys. Even nourishment has learned to cooperate with time instead of resisting it. Nearby, another traveler unwraps a hard slab of dried cod. Its pale surface bears little resemblance to the fish it once was. Months of cold wind have slowly drawn away nearly every trace of moisture, leaving behind concentrated strength hidden within remarkable simplicity. Before eating, the hardened flesh receives several patient blows from a wooden mallet. Each strike softens fibers that northern air has preserved for years. Nothing is hurried. Even food asks for patience before offering comfort. The smell remains clean, almost entirely belonging to sea and cold air. No spices seek attention. No elaborate preparation interrupts the evening. The voyage has little interest in luxury. It values endurance instead. Perhaps many lasting things begin as ordinary things accepted with gratitude. The stars multiply overhead. One remains quietly steadfast, while countless others continue their slow procession around it. No announcement is made. The navigator merely lifts his eyes from time to time. The familiar point remains where memory expects it to be. That is enough. Certainty rarely needs applause. The ship continues forward across darker water. The swell beneath the hull has become broader now, each rise taking longer than before. The vessel climbs almost imperceptibly before descending again with extraordinary softness. The flexible hull receives every movement without protest. The overlapping planks shift by tiny measures. Iron rivets answer with their familiar muted chorus. Oak breathes. Water answers. The conversation continues. Somewhere below, unseen currents carry colder water from distant depths, while the surface reflects constellations so clearly that stars seem suspended beneath the keel as well as above it. The sea creates beautiful illusions without ever intending deception. A gentle splash breaks the stillness off the port side. Only once, then silence returns. Perhaps a seal, perhaps a fish, perhaps nothing more than a curious wave folding over itself. The crew scarcely turns their heads. Life upon open water teaches acceptance of unanswered questions. Not everything unseen requires explanation. Far away, beyond the darkness, unseen coastlines continue shaping the movement of the great swells. The hull senses their influence long before human eyes ever will. Invisible shores announce themselves through changing rhythms rather than changing colors. The world often speaks first through touch, long before it chooses sight. A faint chill settles across the deck. Someone quietly unfolds another greased hide, sharing its warmth with a companion whose rowing watch has ended. Two breathing rhythms gradually become one. No words disturb the night. The leather carries the familiar scent of smoke, animal fat, and many earlier voyages. Perhaps comfort is simply memory wrapped around the body. Above them, the sail continues drawing invisible pathways through the moving air. Below them, the keel continues tracing equally invisible pathways through dark water. Between sky and sea, between wind and current, between memory and tomorrow, the longship glides onward with the quiet confidence of something that has finally discovered the purpose for which every tree, every rivet, every rope, every careful hand, and every patient season had been preparing it. Ahead, the horizon remains hidden beneath the soft veil of the northern night. Yet somewhere beyond that gentle darkness, the sea is already beginning to leave another kind of signature upon the vessel. One written not in light, but in the subtle patterns moving beneath its hull. The night grows deeper without ever becoming complete. A faint silver band continues resting along the northern horizon, as though daylight has chosen not to depart entirely. It lingers with quiet affection, allowing the sea to remain visible just enough for memory to keep recognizing its gentle movements. The longship no longer feels like a visitor here. The water has accepted its weight. The wind has learned its shape. Even the silence seems to leave a small place for its passing. Each slow rise upon the swell becomes familiar enough that the body begins to anticipate it before it arrives. Knees bend almost unconsciously, fingers resting upon polished ochre just by the smallest measure. The motion no longer interrupts thought. It becomes thought. Perhaps this is what every long journey quietly offers. A new rhythm. Not replacing the old one, simply joining it until the two become impossible to separate. The hull continues its patient conversation with the sea. Every overlapping plank shifts almost invisibly as the long ocean swells past beneath it. Somewhere deep within the oak, preserved fibers that once carried rain from roots toward leaves now carry another kind of movement altogether. The tree has not forgotten the wind, it has merely found a larger one. The soft creaking inside the vessel no longer resembles construction, it resembles breathing. Thousands of wrought, iron rivets hold their quiet places, neither rigid nor loose, but allowing the whole just enough freedom to absorb each movement. Had the planks been forced into perfect stillness, the sea would eventually have demanded payment. Instead, every tiny motion is shared. The strength of the vessel lies not in refusing change, but in surviving it together. Far below the keel, unseen water stretches into extraordinary darkness. The surface reveals only a thin, moving skin of the sea. Beneath it, colder layers continue their own silent existence, carrying ancient currents that ask nothing of the stars above them. Depth rarely announces itself, it simply waits. Perhaps wisdom does the same. A quiet breath of wind passes across the deck, carrying cooler air than before. It brushes against the treated wool sail, which answers with a low, comforting murmur. The heavy fabric neither snaps nor strains. Instead, it settles into the breeze as naturally as a bird settles upon unseen currents. There is remarkable dignity in things that understand their purpose. The ropes joining mast to hull remain under constant tension. Walrus hide, braided with extraordinary care, bears the invisible weight without complaint. Salt gathers slowly upon its surface, leaving faint pale traces where countless droplets have dried over many voyages. Even rope collects memories. One voyage leaves almost nothing. 100 journeys quietly write themselves into every fiber. The navigator steps lightly across the open deck. There are no enclosed cabins to separate anyone from the night. Above him stretches the same sky that touches every shore, every mountain, every quiet forest sleeping beyond the unseen horizon. Perhaps this openness explains something about those who sailed these waters. When no roof exists between a traveler and the heavens, the stars gradually become familiar neighbors. He pauses near the mast. No lamp burns, no fire glows. Flame belongs to the shore. The vessel carries only darkness, moonlight, and memory. Tar, soaked timber, and wool ask for respect. Warm meals will wait until another beach welcomes them. Until then, the sea provides movement rather than comfort. Yet there is a different warmth here. Companionship. A sleeping figure shifts gently beneath a shared leather hide. Another quietly finishes a rowing watch before settling beside him. The hides, stitched from cattle and walrus skin, still carry the rich scent of smoke and carefully worked fat. Their greased surfaces repel the fine mist drifting across the deck, allowing warmth to remain where it is needed most. Even rest becomes something shared. Perhaps survival often begins there. A low sound reaches the ship, not from above, from beneath. The hull has entered another field of swells. Long waves cross the vessel from one direction, while subtler movements arrive from another, creating delicate patterns beneath the keel. The experienced crew notices almost without thinking. No coastline appears, no island interrupts the horizon, yet somewhere beyond sight, stone has quietly altered the pathways of water. The sea remembers every shore it has touched, and sometimes it carries those memories far beyond the reach of vision. The helmsman makes only the smallest adjustment. The great steerboard responds with calm precision. Below the surface, the broad blade traces an elegant curve through the darker water before settling once again into effortless balance. The Longship seems less guided than gently persuaded. Control is rarely force. It is careful conversation. High overhead, clouds separate for a little while. Countless stars emerge. One remains steadfast, while others continue their patient turning around it. No one aboard measures this movement with numbers. No calculations interrupt the silence, only familiarity. After enough nights, even the heavens begin to feel like old companions walking beside the voyage. The breeze freshens again. The sail leans into it with quiet confidence. The mast answers by pressing more firmly into the great oak support hidden beneath the deck. Deep inside the vessel, that silent timber accepts the growing load exactly as it was shaped to do. Invisible strength is often the truest kind. The eye rarely notices what faithfully carries the greatest burdens. The sea breathes a little more deeply now, not rough, only wider. The interval between swells grows longer, and the vessel rises more gradually before descending into another gentle valley of water. There is something profoundly peaceful about such movement. It reminds the body of breathing, the heart of sleeping, the slow passage of seasons across landscapes too vast to hurry. Near the bow, a faint splash catches someone's attention. Only for a moment. A school of fish briefly disturbs the surface before disappearing once more into the endless dark beneath. Nothing lingers. The sea offers countless small appearances without demanding that any of them become stories. Not every beautiful moment seeks remembrance. Some exist only to make the present feel complete, toward what might almost be called morning, though the sky has never become fully dark. The eastern horizon grows imperceptibly lighter, not brighter, only softer. The boundary between sea and sky slowly returns, as though gently sketched by an unseen hand. Tiny beads of moisture gather along the polished edge of the steerboard. A rope glistens quietly. The mast catches the first pale touch of returning light. Each object awakens before any human voice does. The world itself seems to rise first. Far beyond the reach of sight, coastlines still sleep beneath forests and quiet hills. Birds have not yet appeared. No scent of land has reached the breeze. And yet, something almost impossible to notice has begun changing. The sea beneath the hull no longer tells exactly the same story it told during the night. Its hidden patterns have shifted ever so slightly, as though another unseen shore has quietly entered the conversation. The change is so delicate that no one points toward it. The sea continues wearing the same quiet face. The swell remains patient beneath the keel. The pale morning light spreads gently across the water without revealing any coastline to reward the eye. And yet, those who have lived long enough upon these waters begin noticing that the voyage is entering another conversation. Not because the horizon has altered, because the life within the air has. The wind carries a different fragrance now, only the faintest suggestion. The clean salt of open water remains, but beneath it drifts something softer, almost impossible to separate from memory itself. Damp vegetation, wet stone, the quiet breath of forests warmed by a sun still hidden beyond the curve of the world. Perhaps land always introduces itself through scent before allowing itself to be seen. One sailor closes his eyes for a moment. There is no need to search. The breeze comes willingly. Every breath gathers invisible traces from places still beyond sight, carrying them patiently across the open sea. The longship itself seems to receive those fragrances through every plank. Oak, after all, spent centuries listening to forests before learning the language of waves. Some memories remain inside wood longer than anyone realizes. Morning continues unfolding slowly. The silver edge of the horizon brightens until sea and sky become easier to distinguish once more. Thin bands of mist drift close to the water, never rising very far before dissolving into the cool air. The mast reaches quietly through them. The sail passes gently above them. For a little while, the vessel seems suspended between two different worlds, one clear, one hidden, both equally real. Far overhead, something small appears against the pale sky. At first it is no more than a dark point moving through the light. Then another. The birds travel with calm purpose, rather than wandering curiosity. One glides low enough for the crew to recognize its shape before it climbs again upon unseen currents. No one speaks loudly. There is nothing remarkable in the appearance of a bird, except here, except now. Its beak holds the silver flash of a small fish, not for itself, for somewhere waiting beyond the horizon. There are young mouths hidden upon cliffs or grassy islands, patiently expecting its return. The bird already knows where home lies. The sea cannot persuade it to forget. Quiet smiles pass among weathered faces, not because certainty has arrived, only because another gentle thread now joins all the others. Invisible swells, changing scent, patient birds. The world seldom offers direction through one sign alone. It prefers quiet agreement between many small voices. Nearby, a simple wooden cage rests securely lashed beside a sea chest. Within it, a raven watches the morning with remarkable stillness. Its dark feathers absorb the pale northern light rather than reflecting it. Bright eyes follow every movement aboard without appearing anxious. The bird has become another traveler, though it does not yet know whether today's sky belongs to sea or land. The cage is opened carefully, no ceremony. Only familiar hands moving with quiet confidence. The raven hesitates for the briefest moment before stepping onto the edge of the wooden frame. The breeze stirs its feathers. It lifts its head, looks once toward the endless water, then toward the empty horizon. For several breaths it remains perfectly still. Even the ship seems unwilling to disturb the moment. Then powerful wings open. The bird rises, not hurriedly, gracefully, higher. Then higher still, circling, watching, searching. Every eye aboard follows without strain. The raven climbs until it becomes another dark mark against the morning sky. For a little while it circles above the vessel as though uncertain. Then something changes, almost imperceptibly. The circles widen. One final turn, and suddenly the wings settle into unwavering purpose. The bird chooses a single direction, without hesitation, without looking back. The crew does not celebrate. They simply continue watching until the black shape becomes too small for the eye to follow. The sea has offered another answer, not through words, through instinct older than maps. Perhaps wisdom is often nothing more than trusting the quiet knowledge carried by another living creature. The helmsman makes only the slightest correction. The steerboard slips gracefully through the water. The sail remains comfortably filled. Nothing else changes. When the course is true, very little adjustment is required. The vessel continues with its familiar calm. Below, the whole listens once more to the broad language of distant swells. Above, birds continue passing at generous intervals. Some disappear toward the unseen shore. Others emerge from it carrying food back across the water. Their paths cross without confusion. Every creature seems to understand its own place within the greater rhythm. Perhaps nature has never needed roads, only memory. One of the younger sailors rests, both hands upon the warm oak rail. Tiny crystals of dried salt cling to the wood, where countless droplets have evaporated beneath gentle sunlight. His fingers brush across them almost absent-mindedly, rough, dry, familiar. The same hand that once carried an axe through northern forests now follows the edge of a ship, carrying those forests across the sea. People change, yet somehow remain themselves. As the morning grows brighter, the pale sun continues its slow climb. Even now it never stands high overhead. Instead it wanders across the sky at an angle that leaves every shadow long and soft. The water receives that light with quiet generosity. Nothing dazzles. Everything glows. It is a kindness unique to these northern latitudes. The world reveals itself without demanding attention. The breeze freshens just enough to deepen the breathing of the sail once more. Heavy wool leans into invisible currents. Walrus hide rigging hums softly. The mast presses patiently downward into the hidden oak that faithfully accepts every burden. Some partnerships endure because each quietly carries what the other cannot. Far beneath the keel, colder water continues flowing unseen. Above it, the longship draws a delicate path across the brighter surface, leaving only temporary traces behind. Soon even those will disappear. Water has little interest in preserving footsteps. It teaches another lesson instead. Continue moving. Do not cling. Memory lives elsewhere. Near midday, the sky opens completely. The last strips of mist fade into clear northern air. In every direction the horizon stretches outward with extraordinary calm. No mountains, no cliffs, no villages, only sea. And yet no one aboard feels lost. They carry direction in the swell beneath them, in the birds above them, in the quiet certainty of familiar stars remembered from the night before. And perhaps, most of all, they carry it within the patient confidence that grows only after countless mornings spent discovering that the world often reveals itself to those who stop demanding immediate answers. Somewhere far ahead, beyond the reach of sight, but no longer beyond the reach of understanding, another shore continues waiting with the same patience that forests once waited for the tree from which this vessel was born. Confidence settles aboard the vessel as gently as the morning light itself. Nothing dramatic has announced the direction ahead. No towering cliffs have risen from the sea. No distant village has yet appeared beneath the pale horizon. Instead, certainty has gathered little by little, like dew collecting upon weathered timber. One quiet sign has welcomed another, the swell beneath the keel, the passing birds, the changing breath of the wind, the scent carried across invisible miles. Together they have formed something stronger than any single certainty could offer alone. Perhaps truth often arrives this way, not as one loud voice, but as many gentle ones speaking together. The sea remains broad. Its surface rises and falls with patient generosity, allowing the longship to continue the slow rhythm it has now come to know so well. The overlapping oak planks answer every movement with their familiar chorus, while thousands of carefully peened iron rivets quietly hold each strake against the next. Nothing aboard struggles against the ocean. Everything aboard learns to accompany it. Above, the sky has become remarkably clear. The pale northern sun continues its graceful arc, never climbing high enough to stand directly overhead. Even at midday its light arrives from an angle, bathing sail, mast, and faces alike with long, gentle illumination. There are few harsh shadows here. The world seems unwilling to divide light from darkness too sharply. Perhaps wisdom also prefers softer boundaries. Near the center of the vessel, the navigator kneels beside a simple wooden board. Its surface bears no elaborate carving. No decoration asks for admiration. Time has polished it more beautifully than any ornament could. A small peg rises quietly from its center. The board rests flat beneath the patient sunlight. For a while, nothing happens. The vessel glides onward. The shadow slowly shifts, not because anyone commands it, because the earth itself continues its endless turning. The navigator studies the changing line without haste. His fingers make no hurried calculations. His eyes merely compare what they already know with what the day gently reveals. The sun has become another companion, reliable enough that even its shadow can whisper direction. The board is returned to its place. The sea accepts the answer without asking how it was found. So do the others. There are forms of knowledge that become almost invisible through familiarity. A child watches the hands of a parent without understanding every movement. Yet the child still arrives safely home. The breeze softens for a little while. The great sail relaxes almost imperceptibly, its heavy wool settling into quieter folds before another current gradually fills it once more. Nothing aboard feels disappointed. The voyage has long since abandoned any desire to hurry. Wind possesses its own temperament. To sail well is not to command it, only to recognize when it wishes to help. A sailor quietly gathers one length of rope into careful coils. Not because disorder has appeared, because order quietly preserves itself through countless small acts that almost no one notices. Each loop falls naturally beside the next. Salt has stiffened certain fibers over many days. His hands understand exactly how much encouragement each section requires before it yields once more into smooth circles. Even rope appreciates kindness more than force. Far above, a single cloud drifts lazily across the open sky. Its shadow glides over the sea below, briefly dimming the silver surface before continuing eastward. For a moment the vessel sails through cool grey light. Then warmth returns again. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. The world often reminds us that permanence is built from endless small transformations. Near the bow, one of the older sailors raises his head. His eyes do not remain upon the sea for long. Instead, they return repeatedly toward the heavens. The sky is not empty. It is filled with quiet measurements, not numbers. Relationships, the angle of light, the passage of hours, the familiar height of the sun above distant water. Each day writes another page using shadows instead of ink. Those who learn to read patiently rarely become lost. The smell of dried cod drifts gently across the deck once more. Another meal, another quiet pause in labor. Hard stockfish receives careful blows beneath a wooden mallet before pieces are shared without ceremony. Nearby, thick butter wrapped for the voyage still holds its shape beneath the cool northern air, protected by generous salt that quietly guards it from decay. A wooden bowl of skyr passes from hand to hand, its pleasant sharpness carries the work of unseen living things that have transformed fresh milk into something capable of enduring a much longer journey. Nothing aboard wastes itself trying to remain exactly as it began. Transformation becomes another form of survival. Perhaps civilizations grow the same way, not by resisting time, but by learning which parts of themselves should change and which must remain. The longship rises gently over another broad swell. Its narrow beam slices cleanly through the water with remarkable ease, while its shallow draft asks surprisingly little from the sea beneath it. The vessel never demands great depth. It simply accepts whatever water is generously offered. This quiet humility allows it to travel where larger ships cannot. Along hidden rivers, across shallow estuaries, toward beaches where no harbor waits. Freedom sometimes belongs to those willing to require less. The thought passes without anyone speaking it aloud. Toward afternoon, the light acquires a warmer tone, not golden in the southern sense, something softer, a pale amber mixed with cool silver that belongs only to northern skies. The wool sail catches those changing colors, becoming almost luminous against the endless water. The mast casts another long shadow across the open deck. The shadow slowly moves from one sea chest to another. No clock announces the passing hours. Ook remembers them instead. The crew begins exchanging places with familiar ease. Another rowing watch prepares itself. Sea chests become benches once more. Each kister holds far more than clothing or provisions. Within its weathered boards rest nearly everything a sailor calls his own: a small knife, a spare garment, simple tools, perhaps a carved token from home, perhaps nothing unnecessary at all. When the time comes to row, the chest becomes part of the vessel itself, supporting another pair of patient hands reaching toward the oar. Personal possessions quietly become shared purpose. Few things reveal community more gently than that. As the first oars enter the water, their blades disappear almost without a sound. Only a soft splash, a brief swirl, then another. The rhythm develops slowly, never hurried, each stroke joining the next, until the vessel seems to breathe through many arms at once. The open hull gathers those low sounds and lets them resonate softly within its wooden body. Even silence possesses echoes when shaped by oak. Above them, the pale sky continues its patient turning. Below them, the sea continues its endless breathing. Between the two, the longship advances not by conquering distance, but by entering into quiet agreement with it. Agreement, once found, asks for very little attention. The oars continue their patient rhythm, and the vessel answers with the same gentle certainty it has carried since leaving the shelter of the fjords. The sea does not become smaller, nor does the sky become nearer, yet something within the voyage begins to change once again. It begins beneath the surface. The water touching the hull carries a different weight. Not enough for the eye to notice. Not enough for a passing hand to feel, but enough for the ship itself. The long, flexible keel seems to enter a quieter conversation, one where the sea no longer speaks with only its own voice. Somewhere ahead, unseen rivers have already begun telling their stories. Far beyond the horizon, fresh water slips from forests, marshes, and distant hills. It carries traces of stone worn smooth by centuries, tiny grains of mountain earth, fragments of leaves, and the memory of rain that once rested upon northern branches. Eventually, every stream discovers another. Every river becomes larger, and somewhere beyond sight, They surrender themselves to the sea. Yet surrender is not disappearance. The meeting remains written within the water, a slight softening, a delicate difference in salt, invisible boundaries drifting patiently with the tides. The longship crosses one without ceremony. Perhaps the greatest changes in life often arrive without announcing that they have begun. The breeze follows these hidden waters as well. Its fragrance grows richer now. The sharp clarity of open salt remains, but beneath it rests another quiet layer, moist soil, pine warmed by gentle daylight, heather carried from distant shores. The scents are so faint that no single breath could separate them. Only time reveals their presence. Memory often works the same way. A sailor standing near the bow inhales deeply without realizing why. Something inside him recognizes home long before the mind attempts to name it. High above, another bird appears. Not alone this time. Several dark forms cross the pale sky, moving steadily with the quiet confidence of creatures who have never needed roads, maps, or milestones. Their flight carries neither urgency nor hesitation, only familiarity. Watching them, one almost forgets that the world is vast. Distance seems less intimidating when another living being crosses it as naturally as breathing. The ship continues onward beneath them. The sail remains comfortably full, its broad square shape catching the wind with the calm assurance of something built to trust invisible forces. The heavy wool no longer smells only of grease and tar. Now the faint sweetness of drying sunlight settles into its fibers. Even cloth changes character beneath different skies. The mast answers every gentle pressure with silent strength. Deep below, the great oak support, hidden within the vessel, continues receiving the downward weight, without complaint, quietly sharing it across the keel where every frame participates. No single piece carries the burden alone. Perhaps lasting societies are built much the same way. The eye naturally admires the tallest structures, yet unseen foundations perform the greater labor. The afternoon drifts quietly toward evening. The pale northern light begins stretching itself once more, lengthening every shadow cast across the open deck. Sea chests become seats. Seats become beds. Beds will later become storage once again. Nothing aboard possesses only one purpose. Everything learns flexibility. Even the ship itself. Its narrow proportions allow remarkable speed across open water, yet those very same graceful lines will eventually slip into places where larger vessels could never dream of traveling. The broad rivers of distant lands, shallow estuaries, hidden channels winding through marshes and forests. The sea does not truly end where land begins. It simply narrows. The longship understands this long before people give those places names. A quiet splash echoes from beneath one of the oars. The blade rises, carrying tiny threads of river water, now mingling with the sea. Fresh and salt continue their patient conversation beneath the hull, neither rushing to erase the other. There is beauty in waters that choose coexistence over conquest. The rowers settle into another watch. Hands that earlier held bowls now wrap comfortably around polished ash oars. The smooth wood bears the marks of countless earlier voyages, worn gradually by skin rather than tools. No craftsman carved those gentle hollows. Time did. Every hand leaves something behind, even when it believes it has taken nothing. The rhythm begins again. Dip, pull, lift, feather. The sounds blend with the quiet breathing of the sail until it becomes difficult to distinguish which movement truly carries the vessel forward. Perhaps every journey is moved by more than one kind of effort. Above the eastern horizon, clouds begin gathering once more. Not storm clouds, only long, delicate ribbons of grey that soften the evening light into quieter shades of silver and pearl. The pale sun slips behind them briefly, leaving the world wrapped in cool illumination. The sea reflects every subtle change without preference. Light arrives, light departs. Water simply continues being itself. The navigator glances toward the sky once again. He no longer needs the shadow board. The day's measurements have already fulfilled their purpose. Now another language quietly prepares to return. Soon the stars will awaken one by one above the mast. The familiar guiding light will once again take its patient place among them. The heavens do not replace the sun. They merely continue the same conversation after daylight has finished speaking. Perhaps wisdom is never one voice, only many voices arriving at different hours. A seal briefly surfaces beside the vessel. Its dark eyes rest upon the Longship with calm curiosity before it slips beneath the water once more, leaving only widening circles that shimmer beneath the fading light. Nothing has been interrupted, only acknowledged. The boundary between human travelers and the living sea remains wonderfully thin. As evening deepens, the first cool breath descends across the deck. Someone quietly unfolds another greased hide. Another shares a simple meal. Nearby, a weathered hand gently checks the lashings securing the steerboard to its wooden mounting. The walrus hide remains strong despite countless encounters with salt and wind. Flexibility has preserved it. Rigidity would have failed long ago. The lesson quietly repeats itself. Though never in exactly the same form, the world has remarkable patience with those willing to listen from different directions. The horizon gradually darkens. Somewhere beyond it, rivers continue flowing unseen through valleys where forests lean over quiet banks. They move steadily toward this same sea, carrying tomorrow's water long before tomorrow arrives. And as the Longship follows its own patient course across the widening world, it begins approaching those hidden pathways where the ocean, almost without anyone noticing, slowly transforms into something that remembers both current and shore. There comes a quiet moment when the sea begins to feel less like an endless expanse and more like an open doorway. Nothing visible marks that threshold. No line is drawn upon the water. No voice announces that one world is gently giving way to another. Only the vessel notices first. Its shallow keel glides through water whose character is changing almost imperceptibly beneath the oak. The long, rolling breath of the open sea gradually softens, replaced by subtler movements that seem to arrive from many directions at once. Currents begin carrying stories instead of distances. The crew accepts the change with the same quiet attention they have offered to every previous sign. No one rushes toward the bow searching for land. They have learned that landscapes often reveal themselves long before they become visible. Sometimes through the scent of wet birch carried across still air, sometimes through birds returning with patient certainty, sometimes through the changing conversation between wood and water. The Longship itself seems almost eager now. Its narrow body continues slipping forward with remarkable ease, while the broad, nearly flat keel asks little from the water beneath it. That humility becomes its greatest freedom. Where deeper vessels hesitate, this one simply continues. It was shaped not only for the sea, but also for the quiet rivers that patiently wait beyond it. Perhaps true craftsmanship is never devoted to a single place. It prepares for worlds not yet reached. The evening breeze grows gentler. The heavy square sail relaxes into softer folds, no longer carrying the entire burden of the voyage. One by one, familiar hands return to the ash oars, resting along the sides of the hull. Each oar finds its place as naturally as returning birds find familiar cliffs. No command needs to be spoken. The rhythm has already lived inside their bodies for too many seasons. The first strokes enter the water almost silently, only the faintest splash, a widening circle, then another. The sea receives every blade without resistance. The vessel answers by gathering quiet momentum. The open hull transforms those measured sounds into a gentle resonance that settles beneath the deck like a slow heartbeat. Every stroke is individual. Together they become one motion. Perhaps communities are not built by making everyone identical. Perhaps they are built by allowing many quiet efforts to breathe together. Far ahead, where the sky meets the unseen earth, the light changes once more. The pale northern sun lowers gradually, though it never seems eager to leave. Its rays travel through a greater depth of atmosphere now, softening further as countless tiny particles scatter the brighter colors away. Amber fades into silver. Silver blends with cool blue. The entire horizon begins glowing with a tenderness unique to northern evenings. Nothing blazes. Everything lingers. The mast stands quietly within that gentle light, its long shadow stretching across sea chests, coils of rope, weathered hands, and resting feet. The shadow moves so slowly that no eye follows it. Time rarely asks to be watched. It simply asks to be shared. Near the stern, the helmsman eases the great steerboard upward for a few moments before lowering it again. The broad blade responds willingly, rising just enough to reduce its reach beneath the hull before slipping back into deeper water. Its mounting of wood and braided walrus hide bends with quiet obedience, never resisting the movement, never growing brittle beneath repeated use. The oldest tools often survive because they understand flexibility, not because they possess greater strength. A faint murmur travels across the water, not wind, not waves. Birds, their voices arrive before the birds themselves become visible, carried across the calm surface with extraordinary clarity. The evening air remains wonderfully still. The water below reflects every sound upward again, allowing distant calls to travel across remarkable distances. One cry follows another, soft, unhurried, as though unseen shores are quietly greeting the approaching vessel. The crew pauses for a moment, not because they doubt, because listening has become another form of navigation. Soon dark shapes appear against the glowing horizon, cormorants flying low above the water. Beyond them larger wings. A white-tailed eagle circles, high above some distant place, still hidden beyond the curve of evening. Its broad flight requires no explanation. Predators rarely hurry. The sky belongs to those patient enough to let invisible currents carry them. The same lesson has guided this voyage from the beginning. Not force, relationship. The smell of damp earth grows stronger now. Heather, moss. The resin of conifers slowly cooling beneath the lengthening day. Every breath gathers another layer of a landscape that has not yet allowed itself to be seen. Some places first become real inside the lungs, only later inside the eyes. One sailor quietly reaches into his sea chest. His fingers pause upon a small carved piece of wood. Perhaps a keepsake, perhaps a simple tool. The object matters less than the gesture itself. Journeys have a curious habit of awakening memories that remain silent at home. Distance often reminds us what closeness cannot. The rowing continues, steady, measured, without urgency. Ash blades rise glistening from the water before returning once more beneath its surface. Tiny droplets catch the low northern light and disappear almost immediately. Nothing clings to the oars. Water always chooses to continue. The vessel glides onward. Its clinker-built hull flexes almost imperceptibly, each overlapping plank yielding by the smallest measure as currents and gentle ripples meet its sides. Thousands of iron rivets remain silent within the oak. They ask for no admiration, yet every peaceful mile depends upon them. Some of the most faithful work in the world is completed without ever being noticed. The sky slowly welcomes the first stars once again. They arrive quietly, almost shyly, above the lingering brightness that still embraces the northern horizon. The guiding star will soon return to its familiar place, not because the travelers require reassurance, but because faithful companions often appear whether they are needed or not. Ahead, somewhere beyond the soft curtain of evening light, rivers continue winding through forests where boats like this one may one day pass beneath leaning branches instead of open skies. The sea has carried the Longship faithfully across immense waters. Now the land itself is beginning to extend an equally gentle invitation, not with walls or harbors, but with quiet currents leading ever farther into the heart of the world. The invitation does not arrive as a destination, it arrives as possibility. The water ahead continues flowing with quiet confidence, no longer carrying only the slow pulse of the open sea, but also the gentler movement of inland currents that have traveled through forests, over smooth stones, and beneath countless wooden bridges of branches before reaching this wider world. The Longship accepts these new voices without altering its nature. It does not become a river vessel. It simply reveals another part of itself. The hull settles almost imperceptibly as the depth beneath it begins to change. There is still more than enough water. Yet those aboard understand something the eye cannot measure. The vessel was never meant to fear shallow places. Its broad keel rests lightly upon the water, asking only a narrow ribbon of depth in return for remarkable freedom. Many ships search for harbors. This one carries its own. The shoreline, still hidden behind gentle bends and distant trees, no longer feels remote. The air has become wonderfully full, not crowded, layered. The scent of pine resin arrives first, warmed by a day that is slowly drawing toward evening. Beneath it rests damp moss, cool earth, and the faint sweetness of heather growing across rocky clearings where the wind lingers before drifting toward the water. Each breath gathers another fragment of an unseen landscape. The body begins arriving before the eyes do. A quiet ripple forms beside the bow. The water no longer stretches with the endless rhythm of the outer sea. Instead, it responds to gentler influences. A submerged stone, a narrow current, the roots of unseen trees reaching patiently beneath the bank. The hull notices every subtle conversation. Its flexible planks answer with tiny movements almost too delicate to hear. Strength has become sensitivity. Perhaps the strongest hearts are those that continue noticing small things. The oars remain in steady motion. Ash blades slip into the water and emerge, once more carrying brief mirrors of the sky upon their polished surfaces. Droplets fall back with barely a whisper. Circle after widening circle drifts away from the whole until each disappears into another. Nothing insists upon lasting. Everything quietly belongs. A low branch finally appears ahead, not clearly. Only its reflection at first. The water reveals the forest before the forest reveals itself. Dark lines tremble gently across the surface, broken only by the passing wake of the ship. Then slowly the true branches emerge above them: birch, pine, spruce. Their trunks rise from unseen banks where soft moss has gathered through countless seasons, holding moisture with patient generosity. Perhaps every forest remembers water as faithfully as every river remembers the sea. The square sail hangs with increasing ease now. The breeze has softened beneath the shelter of approaching land, allowing the heavy wool to relax into graceful folds. Its work is not finished, only shared. The oars quietly assume more of the journey. Nothing aboard competes for importance. Each tool accepts its moment. Each season welcomes another. The mast continues standing above them all, still, patient, like an old tree that has chosen movement over roots. Somewhere beyond the trees, unseen birds begin another evening chorus. The calls arrive gently through the still air, not loud enough to interrupt thought, only enough to accompany it, because the wind no longer carries their voices away across open water. Every sound lingers longer now. The calm surface reflects each note upward again, allowing the forest to seem larger than sight alone could ever reveal. The world often grows through echoes. The helmsman eases the steerboard upward once more, only slightly. The broad blade responds immediately, shortening its reach beneath the hull, while remaining fully capable of guiding the vessel. The thick walrus hide lashings bend with familiar ease. No crack, no strain, only quiet cooperation between crafted hands and natural materials. Wood, leather, water, each trusts the others. It is remarkable how many lasting inventions are simply agreements with nature rather than victories over it. A fish breaks the surface beside the port side. One silver flash, then another. Small rings drift outward before dissolving into reflections of the pale evening sky. Nothing pursues it, nothing fears it. The river simply continues carrying both fish and vessel together toward tomorrow. Nearby, a white-tailed eagle glides silently above the trees. For a brief moment its shadow passes across the sail. Then it is gone. The crew scarcely looks upward. Predators have always belonged to these skies, just as ships have come to belong to these waters. Every living thing follows its own ancient path. One of the younger sailors reaches into the cool water with his fingertips as the ship passes. Freshness, a trace less salt than before, enough to notice, not enough to separate. The meeting of river and sea is patient. Neither seeks to erase the other. Perhaps the most enduring unions are those that allow both voices to remain. The evening light softens further. Long beams filter through scattered branches, touching the polished gunwale before sliding quietly across coils of rope, weathered sea chests, and carefully maintained iron fittings. Here and there a rivet catches the fading light for only an instant. Tiny sparks, then ordinary iron again. Faithful work rarely asks to remain visible. It is enough that it continues. Farther inland, another quiet bend waits beyond sight. Beyond that, another. The water does not reveal the entire journey at once, only the next gentle curve. Perhaps this is why rivers feel so peaceful. They teach trust one bend at a time. Somewhere ahead, beaches of smooth sand and rounded stones rest quietly beneath the trees. Places where a vessel like this can simply glide forward until the keel greets the shore without fear. No towering docks, no carved harbor walls, no elaborate machinery, only earth-welcoming oak. The Longship was shaped for such meetings. Its shallow body may touch the land as naturally as a drifting leaf settles upon still water. When that moment comes, dozens of familiar hands will step into the cool shallows together. No small boats will be needed. No distance will remain between voyage and shore. The journey will simply continue, only now with footsteps joining the path that waves have patiently carried this vessel toward since the first tree was chosen in the forest. The meeting between wood and earth is so gentle that even the water seems reluctant to disturb it. The Longship glides forward one final body length before the broad keel settles softly against the waiting shore. There is no jolt, no harsh sound, only the quiet murmur of water slipping around oak as the current continues its patient journey beyond the resting vessel. For a few moments, no one moves. The voyage has not ended. It has simply changed its pace once again. The square sail hangs peacefully from the yard above, still carrying the faint fragrance of lanolin, pine tar, and countless winds gathered across distant waters. Its heavy folds no longer draw the ship onward, yet they continue breathing gently with every passing breeze, as though remembering the open sea, even while standing beside the forest. One sailor steps carefully into the shallow water. The river rises only to his calves. Another follows, then another. Soon quiet footsteps replace the rhythm of oars. The transition feels almost effortless. This is precisely what the vessel was made to do. Its shallow draft has carried it where deeper ships would hesitate, allowing the boundary between water and land to become almost invisible. Perhaps the finest designs are those that remove boundaries rather than create them. Hands reach naturally toward the hull, not to rescue it, not to struggle against its weight, simply to accompany it a little farther. The smooth logs prepared along the shore wait beneath the bow. Their bark has been stripped away until pale wood gleams softly beneath the fading light. A thin coating of rendered animal fat and crushed seaweed glistens across their surfaces, reducing friction so quietly that the immense vessel seems lighter than reason would suggest. Many shoulders share the work. No single person could draw the ship inland. Together, the movement becomes almost graceful. The rollers turn patiently beneath the keel. One disappears behind. Another arrives ahead, again and again. The Longship advances not because the earth yields, but because many hands agree upon one direction. Somewhere among those hands is a quiet reminder of the Lyanga, the shared obligation through which coastal communities built, equipped, and cared for vessels such as this. The ship belongs to skilled craftsmen, to rowers, to navigators, to those who gathered timber in winter forests, forged iron in glowing hearths, twisted rope from bast fibers, tended sheep whose wool became sails, and harvested pine resin that still perfumes every plank. An entire landscape has traveled within this vessel from the very beginning. The forest became timber, the mountain became iron, the meadow became wool, the sea became a road. Civilizations often appear to be built by people, yet they are equally built by rivers, trees, stone, wind, and patient seasons working beside them. The forest surrounding the shoreline grows quieter as evening settles deeper beneath its branches. Downy birch leaves shimmer faintly whenever the breeze reaches them. Tall Scots pines stand with remarkable stillness, releasing their warm resin into cooling air. Norway spruce darkens into almost perfect silhouettes against the lingering northern sky. Closer to the ground, thick carpets of glittering wood, moss cushion every footstep, while pale sphagnum quietly gathers moisture beside small pools where tomorrow's mist has already begun preparing itself. Nothing in the landscape appears hurried. Even growth seems to happen in silence. A raven lands upon a weathered branch, overlooking the vessel. Its feathers absorb the fading light until it seems almost carved from shadow itself. For a while it simply watches. Centuries from now, stories will remember ravens for many reasons. But tonight it is only another quiet inhabitant of the forest, sharing the same peaceful evening as those below. Not every symbol announces itself. Sometimes it simply exists. The crew begins removing the few belongings that define life aboard. See chests rest upon soft ground once more. The same wooden boxes that served as benches while rowing now quietly become homes again, holding clothing, simple tools, preserved food, and small reminders of distant families. Their purpose changes without resistance. Objects, like people, often discover new meanings simply by remaining useful. Nearby, someone inspects the hull. Patient fingers move slowly across overlapping planks, darkened by layers of pine tar accumulated through many seasons. A rivet catches the light, another, a third. Thousands of small promises remain exactly where skilled hands placed them. No fractures, no broken fastenings. The sea has tested every joint without finding reason to separate them. Yet those aboard understand that no ship remains ready forever. When colder months return, the vessel will not sleep upon the water. Winter ice possesses immense patience and greater strength than any hull. Long before rivers begin freezing, the ship will be drawn completely ashore into its waiting Norse, protected beneath timber roofs and sturdy walls of stone and turf, where rain cannot linger upon the oak and frost cannot quietly pry apart its carefully joined planks. Every great journey depends as much upon rest as movement. Even wood requires seasons of stillness. Soon fresh pine tar will once again be warmed until its rich scent fills the air. Animal hair brushes and mops will patiently spread dark resin across every surface. Broken rivets, if any have surrendered to years of twisting seas, will be carefully drilled free before new wrought iron takes their place. Maintenance rarely attracts songs, yet it quietly allows future songs to exist. The last glow of evening lingers above the northern horizon. Not bright enough to banish the stars, not dark enough to surrender entirely to night. Both remain together for a little while. Perhaps endings always resemble this, not the disappearance of one thing, only the gentle arrival of another. Beyond the resting vessel, the river continues flowing through unseen valleys. Beyond the river, other waters wait. Far to the west, the sea continues breathing beneath the same sky. Far to the east, waterways wind toward lands where these ships will one day travel between forests, across broad rivers, and onward toward distant worlds connected by water more faithfully than by roads. The Longship rests quietly among trees for now, not because its story has finished, but because every voyage understands the wisdom of a peaceful pause before the next current begins to call. The pause settles over the shoreline as naturally as evening mist settling upon still water. Nothing asks the world to remain silent. Silence simply discovers every corner on its own. The Longship rests above the gentle reach of the river, its oak hull carrying the warmth gathered throughout the day. Here, beneath the shelter of tall pines and quiet birches, the familiar fragrance of pine tar mingles with cool moss, damp earth, and the faint sweetness of heather that has released its perfume into the descending night. The vessel seems almost alive in its stillness, not because it moves, because every part of it remembers movement. The broad keel remembers waves. The rivets remember the quiet twisting of the sea. The mast remembers winds arriving from beyond the horizon. Even the wool sail, now folded with patient hands, seems to hold traces of every breeze that once filled its heavy fibers. Perhaps memory is not something carried only by people. Perhaps every crafted thing quietly remembers the purpose for which it was shaped. A small fire burns nearby, not upon the deck where flame would have threatened the tarred timber, but safely upon the open ground where rounded stones embrace its gentle warmth. Its light flickers softly across weathered faces before wandering toward the resting hull. The shadows it creates never remain in one place for long. Even light enjoys traveling. A simple meal is prepared without hurry. Stockfish, once hard enough to demand determined blows from a wooden mallet, slowly softens above gentle heat. Nearby, a wooden vessel holds skyer, whose cool sharpness balances the richness of salted butter. No feast announces the evening, only nourishment, only gratitude. The greatest comforts often arrive without abundance. They arrive through enough. The river continues, flowing only a few steps away. Though unseen in the growing darkness, its presence never disappears. The quiet murmur between stones becomes part of the night itself, joining the distant rustle of spruce branches and the occasional wing beat of a bird crossing beneath the first stars. Nothing competes to be heard. Every sound leaves room for another. The sky above grows deeper with remarkable patience. One by one, familiar lights awaken beyond the fading blue. The guiding star quietly returns to its place, just as it has for generations of navigators who measured neither conquest nor glory beneath its calm gaze, but simply direction. Its steady presence asks for nothing. It shines whether anyone looks toward it or not. There is a quiet generosity in things that continue faithfully without needing recognition. A gentle breeze wanders through the forest. The upper branches begin speaking first. Lower leaves answer moments later. The movement descends through the trees, exactly as cool mountain air once descended the walls of distant fjords, though here its voice has softened beneath countless needles and leaves. The forest breathes differently than the sea, yet both teach the same lesson. Nothing truly alive remains completely still. Even rest contains movement too subtle for hurried eyes. Not far from the vessel stands the mast, its stone walls and timber roof blending so naturally into the landscape that it seems less like a building than another quiet expression of the hillside itself. Soon the ship will spend colder seasons beneath that shelter, protected from rain, frost, and the slow work of ice. There is no sadness in that waiting, only preparation. Winter does not oppose the voyage. It protects the next one. Perhaps time has always worked this way, not dividing life into endings and beginnings, only into seasons of motion, and seasons of careful keeping. The people who built vessels like this understood something that every forest already knew. An oak does not become strong in one summer. A pine does not reach the sky in one generation. Growth quietly belongs to patience. So does craftsmanship. The tree offered its grain. The blacksmith offered his iron. The shepherd offered wool. The rope maker offered twisted fibers. The river offered passage. The sea offered distance. Each gave only one part. Together they created something capable of carrying lives across half the known world. Westward toward Iceland, Greenland, and the distant shores where Vinland waited beyond the North Atlantic. Eastward through rivers that gradually unfolded into the Volga and the Dnieper, where longships were sometimes lifted from water altogether, drawn patiently across stretches of earth, before returning once more to another waiting current. There were no straight lines across those journeys, only one water patiently introducing itself to another. The ship resting beneath these trees contains all of those possibilities. Even while perfectly still, its greatest voyages are never stored inside maps. They remain hidden within its design, within its remarkable willingness to belong equally to sea, river, shoreline and silence. Nearby, the last ember settles deeper into its bed of ash. Its warm glow softens rather than disappears. Above, the stars multiply until the spaces between them become almost as beautiful as the stars themselves. Darkness is rarely empty. It simply reveals different kinds of light. Somewhere beyond the forest, an owl calls only once. The sound drifts through the cool night before dissolving gently into the landscape that received it. Nothing answers. Nothing needs to. The world has never depended upon constant conversation to remain connected. The river continues its patient course toward the sea. The sea continues lifting quiet swells beneath the pale northern sky. The fjords continue holding ancient waters behind their silent stone walls. The forests continue offering timber to generations not yet born. And the longship, resting peacefully between earth and water, waits with the same quiet confidence it carried across every mile of its voyage. Morning will come. Another season will come. Another crew will one day place careful hands upon these familiar planks. Another wind will discover the waiting sail. But none of those moments need to arrive tonight. Tonight, the ship simply belongs to the forest. The forest belongs to the stars. And above them both, the same patient sky that guided every traveler continues its endless turning, asking nothing from those who have already found a peaceful place beneath its light.